CJ Stroud is officially in a sophomore slump. We'll try to explain what's going on this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. On today's show, we're going to break down the Christmas Day games. Kate, let's start with actually the second game. I want to talk about the Texans-Ravens. Not a lot of takeaways on the Ravens side other than Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are, absolutely ridiculous. I want to go on the other side of the ball. CJ Stroud, 17 of 31 for 185 yards, 1 interception, no touchdowns. Houston did not score a single point on offense in this game. Their only points came on a safety. This isn't a one-game fluke. This has been what's happening to the Texans over the last couple of weeks. Their offense has really, really struggled. Kate, what's going on with CJ Stroud?
That's super hard to say. And I think, first of all, I do want to also acknowledge the fact that he's without 2 of his top 3 playmakers, which that's challenging. We kind of came into the season with really high expectations, not just based off of CJ Stroud's rookie year, which was incredibly promising from a passing perspective, but we also walked into this year incredibly high because of the personnel that he had available. Unfortunately, nobody's been healthy at the same time this year, and he's lost 2 of his top playmakers for, the foreseeable future. We'll see when Tank Dell gets back. It sounds like we should probably expect to not have him available.
By the way, we got an update on this knee injury. I don't know, in case the listeners missed it. It came out late on Christmas Eve. He has a torn ACL, a torn LCL, a torn meniscus, a dislocated knee, and a dislocated kneecap. So I saw the report that says he's going to need multiple surgeries over the next couple months to repair that. There's been one player in NFL history that's had that injury, and they never came back. So hopefully that's not the case for Tank Dell, but 2025 seems like at least he's not going to be available, at least.
Yeah, and that is obviously hugely problematic for dynasty value because, we're playing a long-term game. Stephon Diggs, 1-year deal, hugely problematic. But we've seen a huge dip in production. I mean, it's not just the completion percentage. Yards per attempt here are down over a full yard from his rookie season, 8.2 last year to 7.1 this year. It's not clicking. And I think personnel is an issue. I also think that, defenses have maybe figured this offense out a little bit, have figured out CJ Stroud a little bit. And I don't know that Bobby Slowick is a good enough offensive coordinator to figure out how to adjust this game plan to get Stroud back on track.
I do want to point out that at this time last year, we were seeing CJ Stroud ranked across the board as a top 5 dynasty quarterback and was getting really close to that tier of Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, those type of quarterbacks. And we caution people like, hey, listen, Stroud's a really good player, but he's not the unicorn that like Lamar and Josh Allen are. So, and you're seeing that play out this year with some offensive line injuries and with some injuries at the receiver position. He's just not the same athlete to bail the Texans out of bad situations, right? He can run, but he's not a runner, right? He's not going to take off with his legs for 40 yards and pick up first downs when you need him to. He needs a clean pocket to deliver the football accurately. He's not getting that this year, and that's why the numbers are down across the board. It doesn't mean that he's a bad player, but I think last year the expectations were too high for him. I think when it comes to our dynasty perspectives and rankings, we've been saying all along, you should value him as a low-end QB1. And now I wonder, Kate, now that you're seeing a little bit maybe more of the floor, if he shouldn't be valued more as a high-end QB2 rather than an every week starter.
I think that's fair. And, it's kind of unfortunate. Hopefully you didn't get in on your CJ Stroud shares at the top pricing. I think he's a really great complementary quarterback to your lineup if you are in a 2-quarterback or super flex league. But I think you're right. I think the key is that he just doesn't have the athleticism to extend plays in the same way that a Jaden Daniels can when he escapes the pocket, and every time he's out, he's a threat to take it another 10 plus yards down the field, if not straight for the goal line. Like,
And I would also mention, like, one of the differences between like Stroud and Joe Burrow, who Burrow is a pocket passer that doesn't really run, is that Burrow is so good at navigating the pocket and extending plays that way. Where I think you've seen over the last couple of weeks with Stroud, his eyes are starting to drop and he's starting to look at the pressure in the rushers. Stroud has never been somebody that excels out of structure. He's always been a rhythm-based passer. Maybe that'll happen the more he plays, the more comfortable he gets in the offense. But you're seeing all the bad parts of Stroud's game come out now. It's unfortunate to see. You never want to see a player suffer this sophomore slump, but it's happening right now.
yeah, sophomore slump for sure. And you're right. I do think, for a rhythm-based passer, especially like some of the mistakes on the offensive line, the injuries on the offensive line, like I think some of that, the flighty eyes, the looking at pressure and not being able to see what's down the field because of it. Like, I think a lot of that comes to mistrust of your offensive line. And when you don't trust that these guys are going to save you from the sack, that's not good. Ranks 35th out of 43 qualifying quarterbacks in terms of sack rate taken, 8.4% this year. He's taken a lot of big hits.
Okay.
And I think that, some of the missed plays, maybe because he's looking for the pressure instead of looking for the play down the field. Like, I think some of that comes from mistrust of just the situation we've seen play out this far.
I wanted to ask you really quickly before we move on about Joe Mixon. The last 3 games, 12 for 23, 14 for 57, 9 for 26. He's been completely inefficient. Now they have played Baltimore, Kansas City, and Miami in that game. How in those 3 games, how much do you think his lack of production is because of their opponents they're playing, or because he is a 28-year-old running back who has 240 carries on his body this year, starting to wear down?
I mean, let's be honest. Efficiency has never been Joe Mixon's game. And I do want to say that when the Texans were playing, they've never met their 2023 form, but when they were playing better this year, there were certain points in the year where they looked better than they did now, a lot better. And in those games, Marcus, I was watching Joe Mixon. And I said, this is the best he's looked in his entire career.
Yep.
I think there's some component of just the inefficiency of the offense, the struggles that they're having in general in offense, I think are trickling down to the run, because you know what? If the passing game's not going to be a big threat, it gets really easy to key in on Joe Mixon, because that's what he's supposed to establish some rhythm. I'm not super worried about the lack of efficiency we've seen, because in general, I just think Joe Mixon has looked really solid this year. I think the tape looks a lot better than you might guess based on the box score over the past few weeks. Part of that, I think, is opponent based. Part of that, I think, is just a symptom of the fact that this is a struggling offense right now.
Yeah, and their offensive line has dealt with a lot of injuries. Blake Fisher is a 2nd-round pick that's starting at right tackle right now. They've had injuries to Shaq Mason, one of their starting guards. So it's been rough right now for Houston. We'll see if they can get it corrected as we go into the playoffs. But I have my doubts. Kate, let's talk about the other game. I'm sure you're really eager to talk about Chiefs Steelers on Christmas Day. But I do want to talk about Xavier Worthy, who has really turned it on over the last 7 weeks. We will get to him next. This episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money ever help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about, or maybe that you were paying for twice? It has for me. My wife always has these little weird subscriptions out there that I don't even know about. She uses them for a month and then realizes that she doesn't like it and forgets to cancel. But Rocket Money makes it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It'll monitor your spending. It'll help you lower your bills so that you can actually grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals that you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and saved a total of over 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That is rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We are breaking down the two Christmas Day games. And Kate, let's go over to Chiefs Steelers. Chiefs win 29-10. Patrick Mahomes was great again. 29 of 38, 320 yards, 3 touchdowns. It sure feels like now that we've got to December football, Mahomes is starting to ratchet it up a little bit. My dynasty teams are still a little bit upset because we didn't make it this far because of Patrick Mahomes, but that's a different story. Want to talk about Xavier Worthy. 8 catches for 79 yards and a touchdown. He had the second most targets on his team this week. Kate, over the last 7 games, we've seen Xavier Worthy average 65 yards per game. Again, not amazing, but it seems like the Chiefs are starting to ratchet up his workload. What do we think of Xavier Worthy moving forward?
You've got to love the usage. Okay, Marcus, the last 3 games, 9 touches, 10 touches, 10 touches. He's been getting like 2 to 3 rush attempts per game. And guess what? He's super effective with them. When you pair that with his usage in the receiving game, I mean, gosh, if you tell me any wide receiver is going to get 9+ touches in a game, I'm going to say fire him up, especially a guy that has blazing speed like Xavier Worthy. And you love the fact that, like, it's not just counting on Mahomes to get him the football, because Mahomes hasn't been able to do that consistently all year. They're saying, you know what, if we're not going to take the chance of the ball not making it to you, we're going to design plays to get the ball into your hands and see what you can do with it after. And I think that kind of trust is really exciting for a rookie, but you know, something that I think we all kind of knew he was capable of as a high ceiling prospect.
I remember last year, Kate, when we were doing similar things with Rashee Rice, you and I were monitoring his snap counts week by week because we liked Rashee Rice early in the season, but he wasn't even playing 50% of the snaps. I'm sure you remember these conversations. But as the year went on, the Chiefs made him basically a full-time player. He was playing 75% of the snaps, and the usage started to go up. He started actually producing fantasy points. And by the playoffs, you saw a guy that could potentially be like a top 10 dynasty receiver. Not predicting that with Xavier Worthy, but okay, there was a point yesterday where I saw a tweet that Xavier Worthy had been on 28 of the 29 offensive plays to start the game for the Chiefs. Like, he is just a full-time starting receiver on this offense, who he's got the most juice of anybody on that offense. And it's clear Patrick Mahomes is like starting to trust him. There was a couple big third downs where he's running an over route and there's a guy trailing right behind Worthy and he drops the ball into the bucket. Worthy makes a couple big plays. I'm just really excited about his long-term outlook. There's a different world where Mahomes is more accurate in the first 3 months of the year and he's at 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. He's still probably going to finish the year with 800 yards from scrimmage and double-digit touchdowns. Pretty impressive rookie season. Super
impressive. And we know Marquise Brown on a 1-year deal. So, like, there is going to be a continued pathway for a sustained workload. You also love to see kind of the diversity in the way he's been used. I talked about the design touches, but, you know, near 12% slot target rate, near 11% deep target rate. Like, he's getting different types of plays. And I think that versatile usage that we're seeing for Worthy is kind of huge, especially as a rookie, because it's not every rookie that you're able to diversify the game plan with that successfully.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to Worthy's talent overall. I think we know the ceiling's really high because he's so explosive. His speed is and finesse is going to make him able to make big plays down the field. And make one guy miss and you've probably got a house call. Like, never going to be a contested catch guy, but
Nope.
He doesn't need to be with the way that the Chiefs are utilizing him and just letting him make plays.
Yeah, and I think his role on this offense is really stable. I actually hope the Chiefs bring back Hollywood Brown, because I don't think Hollywood Brown's going to eat into his targets at all, because you're seeing it play out right now. Hollywood's played the last 2 games. He's been effective. He's made plays. And yet Worthy's still the guy that's getting all of these targets, right? I think Hollywood is a good player. I know he's small and I know he's fast, but he's a much different type of player than what Xavier Worthy is. Worthy is probably the one guy that I want to try to get on every single Dynasty team this offseason. He's 21 years old. 21. Like somebody like Rashee Rice, who I really liked last year, I think was 23, 24, just played a lot more football than what Xavier Worthy did. I can't imagine what Worthy's going to look like in year 2, probably putting on some weight, knowing this offense a little bit better. Andy Reid will have more time to design plays to get him the football. I want him on every single team.
Yeah, some players that I would prefer Worthy over straight up that are kind of being drafted in the similar range right now. A Devonta Smith, for example. A Chris Olave.
Easily.
Jalen Waddle. Like,
easily.
I'll take Xavier Worthy over all of these guys because I know the ceiling's super high with the quarterback play that he's going to get. We know
Give me
that
a couple more. A couple that are higher. Let's keep going.
Oh, higher. Okay.
Jaden Reed.
Pickens.
Oh, that's a tough one. I probably would say Pickens, but there's a lot more downside there.
I think that's fair. I think it's just really hard to, not answer George Pickens when you watch him play football, because the talent is just absolutely ridiculous. Rome Odunze, fellow rookie.
I'll take Rome.
Okay. All right. So I think we found the range. Jaden Reed, I think you're taking Xavier Worthy all day.
All day.
DJ Moore.
Worthy.
T. Higgins.
Worthy.
Okay. So that puts him as a top 20, top borderline.
I think we can go even higher.
Wide receiver.
He's not going to be Tyreek Hill because he's completely different than what Tyreek Hill is.
Yeah.
But Kate, if I told you next year he plays 16 games and averages 80 yards per game, do you think that's unrealistic?
Absolutely not. No, I think that's pretty.
And scores double digit. Because let's say he averages 80 yards a game, maybe 70 receiving, 10 rushing. You're looking at like a 1,300-yard receiver. And I don't think we basically have seen that over the last 2 months. I just feel like it's coming. Rashee Rice is probably not going to play most of next year. Travis Kelce is going to be out of the picture sooner rather than later. Hollywood Brown's a free agent. Worthy is going to be the guy that they're going to have to build this offense around going forward.
Yeah, and I think, when you're looking at the box score, he hasn't had 100-plus receiving yard game yet. Yesterday actually marked his career high receiving yardage, 79 yards. But so the numbers at face value don't seem all that impressive. But I think what fantasy managers need to consider over the stats is how good he looks on some of these design touches, the usage, the intent from Andy Reid to get you the football and just put the ball in your hands. That is huge because we know that Andy Reid is a creative play caller that will find a way to get the ball into his best players' hands. And
the other thing I want to say, Kate, is like we just haven't seen Mahomes and Worthy connect on some of these deep balls. Like we've had it early in the season, but over the last 2 months, it hasn't happened. There
A
was a
lot of
play
plays
against,
left on the field.
yeah, there was a play against the Raiders on a 4th down, or maybe it was a 3rd down, where they ran a play action. Worthy was wide open down the field, and Mahomes just missed them. If they start connecting on those plays, that's when you're going to see the 140-yard, 2-touchdown days. The fact that he's been this productive without basically any form of deep passing attack makes me want to buy him even more.
Yep.
All right.
All aboard.
Let's talk about Najee Harris, who has seen his usage and his overall snaps go down almost every single week over the last month. What is going on there? And could he be the next Josh Jacobs? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. There's so many great ways to pick up a W on FanDuel. You can still go bet on division winners, who's going to make the playoffs, season awards, so many great options over there on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That is FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the new Locked On NFL show. 2 shows every single day, one in the morning with Tyler Rowland, one in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins, available wherever you get your podcasts. Kate, I want to ask you about Najee Harris, who I thought looked really good against the Chiefs. 13 carries for 74 yards, did catch 2 passes for 7 yards. He's having a pretty good season overall, over 1,000 yards for the 4th consecutive season. He scored 5 touchdowns. Pittsburgh declined his 5th-year option. It doesn't sound like he's going to be back in 2025. Is there any chance that he could be the next Josh Jacobs, where he goes from maybe a bad offense to a really good offense and becomes a league winner?
I absolutely think that's the case. And I'm trying not to be biased here. Obviously, I'm a Steelers fan. But I understand the Najee Harris experience has not been at all, I think, what most expected coming out of Alabama. But having watched Najee Harris as closely as I have, this is so by far and away his best season. You look at the yards per attempt average, 4 yards per carry, tied for his best, which he produced last year. Never had a season better than that to this point. And still, I think the tape tells you such a different story about the type of player that Najee Harris has been this year. So much more elusive. I think the ability to read the field has increased tenfold over the past 2 seasons. This is not the same player that I think we saw in the first, let's say, 2 years of his contract. He is, I think, growing up, he's seeing the field like a big boy should see the field. And I do think that, I mean, he's in for what I expect to be a handsome payday. And he's going to, have the control of the market here in this one. He's going to be able to see which teams he's going to be a good fit with his physical downhill run style. He's going to be able to play the field the way he wants to play the field. And I do hope that he's going to find a team that's just maybe a little bit better fit for what he does well.
So let's give the pro Najee case, right? This is a former first-round pick at Alabama who actually played ahead of Josh Jacobs back in 2018, 2019. He's incredibly durable. He has not yet missed a game in his NFL career. He has 4 fumbles in his entire career, 0 this year. He's a good pass blocker. He's I would say, an adequate receiver. Like you throw screens to him, he's not going to drop them. But he's not somebody that you're going to put in the slot or anything like that. But a durable running back that doesn't fumble, that can handle a lot of work. Like there are going to be teams that are really excited about getting that, right? So for that player to function or to give you high-end fantasy value, you need to put him on an offense that's just going to be near the goal line a lot, right? And up in a lot of games and giving him plenty of touches, because I don't think he's the most efficient running back. For his career, 3.9 yards per carry. He's never averaged over 4.1 yards per carry. But I think if you get him into a better offense with a better quarterback, that could happen. Now, the downside is, Kate, again, he's not a breakaway speed running back. He's got a lot of work on his body. Oh, I mean, we're looking at 1,300 touches already in the NFL, a bunch at Alabama. He's going to be 27 this offseason. But if you put him on a team like the Chargers, who might want to get younger and more physical at running back, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him next year, 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns, just in a much, much more favorable situation.
I think the Chargers would be an absolutely fantastic fit. And I mean, he does fit exactly what this team wants to do. Obviously, you want to keep the ball in Justin Herbert's hands, but generally the goal is going to be play possession football and, just kind of win out with the physicality of the run game, the defense. Like, that matches perfectly what Greg Roman, I think, wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
So Najee Harris, I think, could be a really great compliment. What other offenses do you think would increase his value most significantly here? Because I do think that there's plenty of opportunity here, right? And there are plenty of backfields that could use kind of like a lead guy. Houston Texans, New York Giants. I don't think any of us are hoping for that one, but like,
I'll mention, I think Washington could be one if they wanted to grab somebody else to maybe pair with Brian Robinson, who's going into the final year of his deal. I'm looking at Cleveland as a situation where Nick Chubb is now dealing with a broken foot. He clearly didn't look the same this year. Maybe they want to add somebody else. And I'll mention Dallas. I don't think Dallas is going to spend money on a free agent running back unless it's Rico Dowdle. But I do think Dallas is a spot with a good quarterback, a young offensive line. They have CeeDee Lamb. We know Mike McCarthy, assuming he's back, is a good play caller. I think that's a situation that could be favorable. I do think there are some situations out there that could really improve and increase Najee Harris's dynasty value. We just need to get him out of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it does feel like that's kind of the case at this point. Now, I mean, there are a lot of teams that kind of have a bona fide RB1. So I think that, if we're looking to get Najee Harris, as many touches as humanly possible, it's probably going to be a challenge. I'm going to throw out one team for you, and tell me how crazy this would be, but this would send his dynasty value, I think, through the roof. What about the Kansas City Chiefs, who I know we all love the Isaiah Pacheco story, but we saw again yesterday, he has struggled to stay healthy over the course of his NFL career. And, it's not like he's getting crazy touches, right? Like, we saw Kareem Hunt come in his first game off the couch from the street, had more carries, more touches in a game than Isaiah Pacheco has ever had in his career as the lead running back. I do think that Kansas City would love to run the ball with more consistency.
100% agree.
But
100%.
I don't think they've had a guy that's just durable enough to do it. I could picture Kansas City really liking what Najee Harris could bring to the table. And I think you give Najee Harris, 250 touches in a Kansas City Chiefs offense. I think they would love to have their lead back have 250 touches. I think it could be a really nice fit.
Kareem Hunt has looked pretty washed the last couple of years, but he's number one in the NFL in success rate just because of how good that offense has been. My only problem is I think Najee's going to get somewhere around $10 million a year, probably. And I just don't know if the Chiefs can swing that with all the free agents they have, with all the upcoming contracts they have. I think they would love to add Najee. And if Najee wants to come in on a really cheap deal to try to win a championship, maybe he can do that. But I think, Kate, if I had to guess, I think the Chiefs are one of the destinations where they could draft a running back like in round 1 or 2. Again, they're probably going to be picking 31 or 32, right? So it's not a huge deal if you draft a running back at the end of round 1 and just try to go cheap at that spot again. They do have Isaiah Pacheco one more year, maybe try to draft somebody else with them, but that's it. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen of the day. Go follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Majuk. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.